1984 World Pair Champions Barbara Underhill and Paul Martini have put just a few miles on their skates since that night 15 years ago. Welcome to Retro Ice Time.
Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, Barb. You have a whole other trip coming up quite shortly. Now, do you remember that night? It was magical 15 years ago, Ottawa. Do you remember what it was like?
Oh, every second.
Well, you know what? We have a little clip of an interview that was done with you immediately following your skate. Have a little look. Johnny Esau, Brian Pokar, and Otto Jelinek.
How do you feel as being called the champions of the world?
I don't think it's sunk in yet. It was such a neat feeling to see that flag actually go up in the air and hear that anthem. It was a feeling that I don't think either of us have ever experienced. And I just want to say that a lot of the credit has to go to our two coaches and to our parents who, after we got home from Sarajevo, brought us back up from the dumps and got us back here. And they put just as much into it as we did, and we've got to thank all of them too.
When I watched your program, I was so excited, and I was really nervous because sometimes you push like apprehensive pushing for it, but tonight you look so relaxed and so on. Everything was right on.
I don't think I've ever felt that relaxed out there on the ice, and the crowd was great. They were cheering us on, and right after that third double axel, I knew that from there it was home free, and I just put everything into it, and I really had a great time out there tonight.
Well, I hope Paul gives you a chance.
I might get a word in. I might get a word in edgewise. It's a possibility.
Let's give you your shot first then, Paul. That night completely changed your lives.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where you don't realize what the potential is when it happens. When you're standing there with that medal around your neck, and as Barb says, you don't actually get a chance to absorb what you've done for a few days. But then what the potential that arrives is amazing, and we've all seen where the sport of skating has gone since then. Sure. And we were just at the beginning of the ride, and we're fortunate enough to have our careers span so much of the change that we've all experienced since then.
And Barb, I know it's fairly common knowledge, the really tough time you had that year. Coming out of Olympics, you were so disappointed. Mm-hmm. How did you really turn it around? I know there are stories you want to tell.
Well, I mean, there were a number of things that had to happen. First of all, we had to get on the same page again because it was a lot like mourning. You know, we had put so much into this, and years and years and years all led to this one moment in Sarajevo, and it came crashing down around us, and we had to pick up the pieces very quickly, and there wasn't a lot of time. We only, like a matter of weeks, and we were both just on different planets. And
how did you get back together?
It was the day that I went back into my old skates, and you know, we were minutes from making that call to Ottawa to say we're not gonna come. And it was Brian Orser that said, why don't you try your old skates? And I did, and then suddenly something magical, truly magical happened, and I knew within 5 minutes of skating that that was the problem, and I was just free again.
Do you remember that moment, Paul?
Very vividly. It was a situation where once Barb got on there, it was like someone went over and just hit the switch, and she wouldn't come off the ice, which was much different than where we had been, because it was like we couldn't get on the ice because nothing was going well. Very frustrating in terms of not being able to skate the way I think we both knew we were capable of skating. And so when that wasn't happening, it was very frustrating to just even put skates on and get out onto the rink.
From a viewer's standpoint, I used to look at you, and always when your hands connected, it was like you were magnets attached, and that was missing.
No, we were totally unconnected. But the minute the skates worked, it was like we put everything behind us, and we knew we had only a week. Time was short, and I don't know if it was that day or the next day. Well, that day I kind of skated by myself the whole day, and just like I couldn't believe it. And the next day, when we got on the ice, everything just happened, just instantly for us.
And now, we haven't got a lot of time left, but in the years since then, I think your career got even better and bigger. You became role models for pair skaters around the world. I think you improved for years after that.
Oh, I'm quite convinced that the best part of our career was post what you saw on that screen.
Yes.
I think we were one of the few skaters who, yes, was successful as amateurs, but then capitalized on all of the opportunities that came along since then in terms of professional competitions, the amount of exposure you got, the different types of shows that you could become involved in, and they all enabled us to, I think, move to an entirely different level.
Well, you know, I'm sorry that Underhill and Martini are no longer, but maybe you can start your own precision team now. What do you think? Thanks so much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
One more medal to go, and we'll look at that one in just a minute. The men are up next on Retro. Going to break, here's a look at other sports winners from '84.